Well, hello, welcome to Lessons of Vietnam. My name is Bill Dixon. I'm president of North Carolina Vietnam Veterans Incorporated, along with my co-host, Mr. Bob Matthews, who's director of the Bridgeback Foundation, our education wing of the North Carolina Vietnam Veterans Incorporated. Bob, it's been a beautiful day today, hasn't it?
It's wonderful. Wonderful day.
What we're talking about doing tonight is we had a guest lined up, but unfortunately at the last minute they couldn't make it. So we're going to kind of recap some of our POW shows we've done, and looking forward to our next show. We'll have a very special guest from that, and then the show after that will be really special. Our first show in May will be from Vietnam, probably from the Dong Ha area of Vietnam. So we'll be doing that show, and then after that, we're going to be having Kerry Turner back with us to talk a little bit more about his book, Bringing Joseph Hargrove Home, and what has transpired since his last show that he had with us. Seems it has opened up a lot of doors and stirred up some interest back in getting Joseph a home for his family and so forth.
Well, Bill, that was the game plan. When you bring up questions like we've done the last 6 shows on the POW issue, people start to think a bit, and they ask better questions because there are no answers. And he came on, he really opened a can of worms, and he knew he was doing it. And that was the game plan, to get people to ask questions. Why? Critical thinking. Why are you doing this? Why aren't you doing this? And then wait for an answer. If you don't get the proper answer, dig deeper. And I think Kerry was very satisfied with the response. And I'm glad he's coming back. Let me talk a little bit about our next show, okay?
Okay.
We're having on, as Bill mentioned, a very special lady, Janie Schutte, the wife of Bill Schutte, and we're entitling the show Those Who Waited. And I want you to think about that for a minute, because the Lessons of Vietnam, for a lot of the reasons we did years ago, was to talk about the word called inclusion. You don't just talk about the soldiers. You talk about the war itself. You talk about the decade in America that really rewrote the script for this nation. And when I say inclusion, Bill, I'm talking about those who waited, your family, my family, all the members of the families of the men and women that served in Vietnam were part of the Lessons of Vietnam. And when this came up in the classroom, and we asked the kids to go home and to ask questions, like Kerry was doing the other night. The art of asking good questions makes everything work. And with Janie Schutte coming on, Bill's wife, we met her at the showing of Ron Harris's play, over in Cary about a month ago. And she considered coming on. Bill Schutte's wife waited 7.5 years, met with Ross Perot, was very active in his absence. She should be a delight. That would be 2 weeks from tonight. Janie Schutte, Those Who Waited. She should be great.
She's got quite a story. Her husband was gone 7.5 years without her really knowing a whole lot about where he was at and what was going on and so forth. And she stuck with him. That took a very strong lady to hang in there for 7.5 years. And
well, Bill, there's a time, I believe, that you, after all the backslapping and all the handshakes and all the buffets are over with, you finally have some alone time.
Yeah.
And you have that look across the table with your loved ones. And I talked to my sister about this a long time ago, and she said when we came back from Vietnam, she knew a few other guys who were in Nam, but they were not afraid. They were a little nervous about what to talk about, what to ask. Imagine how Janie felt.
Yes.
After 7.5 years, what to ask Bill, what not to ask Bill, to let Bill talk, to interrupt, because for so many years, she ran the show. She raised their one child alone, and became, I'm sure, some very long nights. It's some very, very long nights. 7.5 years. A very strong woman.
Yeah, one of the first things that you would want to ask would be to talk about the torture, but then again, you didn't want that was something you didn't want to talk about, I would think, because it would bring it back, but it was something that you felt like you should know. It would help you as a spouse to kind of know how to tread and not always. It's like walking on eggshells. Sure. You don't know exactly what to do or say or.
Well, that's a really good point. But excuse me, several years ago, when I first contacted Bill Schutte, and he were telling about the helmet in Moscow and all that, we were talking about things. I first contacted Bill, and I was a little nervous myself. And my wife Betty said, when he said, "I want to talk to you," at first, she said, "Respect his privacy," and she was right. I said, "Of course I will," but I had to know.
Yeah.
I had to sit down with Bill and ask some questions. Because as I mentioned many times on the show before, all the years that we've worked on this course, Lessons of Vietnam, there was a big hole in it, big hole in the course, because I didn't know about POWs, like a POW would, obviously. And then when he jumped in the hole, case closed.
Yeah. Well, you know, Ms. Schutte and Admiral Stockdale's wife and Norman Gaddis's wife and some of the other wives who got together and gave each other strength and started the League of Families.
Sure.
That's had to be some strong ladies to get out there, and because from the research we have done, there's been so much bad information, downright lies, and innuendos and everything else going on about the POWs and who was POW, who wasn't a POW, that those ladies pulling together and League of Families, and you've been to some of their meetings. I've been to some of their meetings, and listening to some of the JPAC people or some of the people in charge of finding out who was alive, who was dead, bringing those home, and so forth. That so many of the wives, up until the homecoming, did not know for certain who was a POW, who wasn't a POW.
Well, about probably 5 years ago, I was very honored. I was invited to go to Washington, D.C., and to speak to the League of Families dealing with our course. Mm-hmm. And the whole idea for me coming up was, what are we teaching the students about the POW issue? Are we teaching them anything? Do we need some help? It was a very, very positive meeting. And I went up and I told them exactly what we're doing, and we did need some help. And to get more information. I was finished. They gave me a gold coin. I treasured that coin because it was almost like I was admitted to the club then, because they accepted me as a teacher, and they were guarded, as you just mentioned. They were guarded because they've been lied to for so long. And even we can make a little bit of an analogy here. Remember several years ago when we went down to Wake County Schools and asked them if we could teach a course on Vietnam, it was like we were asking them for their wallets. It was taboo. Yeah. And this must be 10 times as bad, because they were asking for information that they were demanding information, and all of a sudden they were told to shut up. Nobody wants to hear it. Get out of here. And they said no.
Yeah. Yeah. There was, and the thing about it was, I don't think they've ever really looked for any live prisoners over there. It always seems like they've done nothing but look at remains. From we all know Ted Sampley.
Sure we do.
And you either believe that he was probably the most dedicated man in the world, or he's the biggest con man in the world. Now, the people think both ways, sure. But he did a lot of things to try to get the word out about Ross Perot's ward for live sightings and so forth. And we understand from people we've talked to, third parties and so forth, not personally, but that people went to the American Embassy and said they knew where the remains or where there were live soldiers, and the embassy told them that we didn't give money for live sightings.
Well, there's been so much speculation on that issue and so many conspiracy theories. There's been all kind of photographs. Some are doctored, some are not. As you mentioned about Ross Perot. Ross Perot gets a lot of credit in the Lessons of Vietnam course and everything we do for several things. And one, of course, is the wall. Some things he did with the wall, with the statue, the compromise, and Ross was very, very important in building of that wall. But he also was very important in the continued research of the POWs. Now, Ross Perot's interest in Vietnam, I could never figure out why he was so interested, other than just being a good American with a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to help everybody that he could. He listened to Ted Sampley. He offered $1 million for live POWs. And usually when money usually talks, but it didn't talk too loud that time. But I've read so much on this issue, you have too. And so many people say, well, I've got an idea. Well, I've talked to several JPAC people, as you have too. And let's take for a minute right now, if we can, and let's talk about what's happened to the credibility of JPAC.
Yeah, recently come out, Stars and Stripes have had some really great stories. In an article they have in October of 10th in 2013, they talk about where the JPAC was having coffins come in on cargo planes, having color guards there to very solemnly take the flag draped coffins and taking them off and so forth. And now it's coming out that for 7 years, those coffins were quite often empty. Some of the planes couldn't even fly. They were actually towed to the site so that the public could see them. They just wanted to raise their numbers because Congress told them they had to have 200 a year to keep funding.
Well, Bill, when I hear this stuff, not only does it make me angry, it makes me think that if they did this, an empty coffin, towed a plane, and fooled everybody, there had to be dozens of people in on it.
Yeah.
It's not a one-man show. It's a plan to do this, maybe to keep funding going. I don't know why they would do this, but somebody will talk.
Yeah. Well, along those same lines, Bob, the Associated Press ran a story in 2012 where there's an internal investigation going on, and this is what they said about that. This is one of their own members wrote this report, and says they were acutely dysfunctional with some missions that accounted to little more than paid vacations for staffers. When they the credibility that they got, the ones I've always talked to, it's always seemed like they were so gung-ho to do their job, but now we're going back and see where they didn't document things like they were supposed to. They didn't keep proper records. It was almost like a vacation.
Any kind of project of this magnitude has to be almost like a science. Like you said before, document, photograph, and be accountable. And I ran into several of the JPAC members myself in Washington, D.C. I sat down, had a long conversation with two of them. I left so impressed because they said, first of all, they were dedicated to this. They will find the remains. They will cooperate with the Vietnamese, which is very difficult. In fact, most of them were learning Vietnamese, so they wouldn't be fooled over there by talking out of both sides of their mouth. They were learning Vietnamese. They were going to Vietnam, maybe Laos, maybe Cambodia, off the coast, and they were dedicated to doing this until they found at least one remains and brought them back.
Mm-hmm.
So this is unsettling to me, that all these men and women were in on this scam. So I guess
I'm not sure about with all of them. It kind of goes back to the leadership. I think
it does.
Congress said that they should be collecting remains about 200 a year, and they can't do 70. And what's so strange to me is why it takes 2 years from the time to get remains to do a DNA test to find out who they were. Talk about credibility. You and I know that the unknown soldier from Vietnam,
sure.
When he was interred into the tomb of an unknown soldier, they knew who he was at the time.
I know.
But they to expedite or to make things look good or whatever reason they had, they buried him in knowing that they knew who he was and just didn't bother to tell the family. And that goes back to the credibility again. Again, another Stars and Stripes memorandum. The commander of a memorandum to the commander of the JPAC, a former JPAC forensic anthropologist, outlines some serious deficiencies with the laboratory. He said that it appears to be a pattern of malfeasance of duty and abuse of scientific ethics with regard to archaeological methods and work conducted by JPAC. And when their own people, it blows me away. This has been going on since 2010, according to the Stars and Stripes report. We're now in 2014, and people still working. They're still digging. Why someone hadn't stepped in and done something before?
Well, I think one thing that we have to realize is, what you mentioned before, the key word is leadership.
Mm-hmm.
If this was a priority in the Defense Department, we've always said it was, that we'll leave no man behind. We'll look and look and look and look, and then we'll look again.
Yeah.
And, one of the guys involved in this, of course, years ago, was John Kerry.
Yes.
And when John Kerry came back and was involved in the Vietnam Veterans Against the War, and very active with the Winter Soldier and all this, John Kerry basically said, there's no one there.
Well, John McCain said the same thing. And, I can understand where the POWs, with what they went through,
Sure.
realizing or saying to themselves, I went through it 7 years.
Sure.
Now we're talking about 30 years or 40 years. There's no way a human being could go through those things. So I can understand why they feel like there could not be a live POW there.
I can understand it, but I also can't understand with the leverage and the positions that John Kerry has enjoyed. A U.S. Senator from Massachusetts and now Secretary of Defense. Am I correct?
You're
State.
correct. Last Secretary of State, yes.
Secretary of State. He has all the clout, all the ability to turn over every leaf. He chooses not to. And I was reading before we came on the show tonight, there's a movement now. These Swiftboat guys will not let John sleep. The Swiftboat people that were against John Kerry have now collaborated with the wives of former POWs and allocated almost $2 million for a new string of commercials coming out.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to get to the bottom of this. If they have to step on some toes, they'll do it.
Well, several years ago, many years ago now, our senator, Mr. Helms,
Mr. Jesse Helms,
his organization did a report, and it came out that said, yes, we did leave POWs in Vietnam. And shortly after that report came out, all that staff members suddenly lost their jobs. And our course got in little problems because at one of the meetings with the legal families, Jesse Helms was there.
Yes, he was.
And someone brought those questions up to Jesse, and there was a lot of repercussions from our course. We almost...
well, not to mention names,
yes.
So I won't.
All right.
But there were a couple of the teachers that set Jesse up.
Yeah.
And we got to D.C., and first of all, it was like pulling teeth to get an audience with a sitting U.S. Senator.
Yeah.
So we did. We got an audience with Jesse Helms. Not his aide, Jesse Helms.
Yes.
He comes out and sits down in front of the students. Perfect. We were talking to the kids about people really do care. Leadership in D.C. really care. He came out, and you could see on the kids' faces, my God, Mr. Matthews and all the guys were right. Jesse does care. Then out came the canned questions that this person, who we will mention names.
Yes. No.
But I will if I want to, but I won't.
No, don't. Let's don't.
I won't mention names.
Let's don't mention names.
But
they know who they are. So.
But this person set the kids up in a terrible way. And that's been my biggest thing. Never compromise the students. Put the students in the line of fire to ask the questions that this person wouldn't ask.
Yeah.
And Jesse walked out. And I was so embarrassed, not for Jesse, for the students.
Yeah.
And all the work we've done to get him to come out. And I talked to him later personally. And he knew he was set up. And he didn't blame me.
Yeah.
But he did.
Well, it's important we finally get the real story out, if it's possible.
But don't mention names.
We don't mention names, but at the same time, you can't set a man up to embarrass him. That was a political move.
Yes, it was.
By someone from another party who was very important, very high up in the other party.
I understand.
Who kind of set him up. But I think you need to ask those questions, but not in the form that were there.
Well, after the meeting, and Jesse walked back into his private chambers, I met with his aide, who was real like meeting with Jesse. And he said to me in no uncertain language, "What is your problem?" And I said, "I don't have a problem. I don't think. I'm trying to teach school." He said, "But you got an audience with a U.S. Senator in Washington, D.C., with your students here. They're all seniors, gone to college, and they think the world of you. What am I going to say to you now? You set us up." And I apologized. I had to. It wasn't my fault, but I took blame for it. He wrote my name down, what he ever did with my name, but I slept well that night. I heard a noise outside, but I wasn't sure.
Jesse wasn't one you want to be on the wrong side of.
No, I don't think so. Anyway, getting back to the issue, Bill, for a moment. One of the lessons of Vietnam that we talked about before was to allow all of the people to ask questions. And please, if you wish any comments on what we've done before, the other shows we've talked about, we've had several kinds of POW people on, as well as POWs, as well as their families, and we're not finished yet. We've got more and more to go. So if you'd like to call in tonight, ask Bill or I a question, or just make a comment. The number is 919, of course, 518-9773. We'll be here till 8 o'clock, taking questions and comments. And I think Bill has mentioned earlier in the show that about almost a month from today, we are leaving for Vietnam.
No, but today we're in Vietnam a month from now. We left 2 days ago.
We left 2 days ago for Vietnam, and we've got a wonderful trip planned. And part of it is going back to Dong Ha, going to a school. I'll let Bill give you some more details on this, but I want you to understand that the bridge back is active, and we're starting to build a new exit on the bridge. Bill, would you brief the audience, if you wouldn't mind, about what our plans are on this trip coming up in May?
Okay. Well, we're leaving the United States May 7th. We arrive at Da Nang through Korean Airlines May 8th. We'll stay there at a hotel there right across from Marble Mountain for a couple of days. We're going to go to Hoi An, which is one of the oldest cities in Vietnam. Then we're going to leave there, and after visiting there, we're probably going to stop by. We're going to go right on over to Dong Ha, I believe, where we will be putting the playground together, which is the real reason, the total reason we're there. But then while we're there, we're also going to visit the DMZ, the museums there, and a lot of people don't realize there were a pretty extensive set of tunnels on the North Vietnamese side because of all the bombings and so forth. So we're going to visit that, and also when we're going to go is Quang Tri Province was the most bombed area in the history of warfare.
Sure.
And there's still a great deal of unexploded ordnance that are injuring a lot of Vietnamese, especially kids and so forth, on a regular basis. There's a mine center there who teaches the public. The United States is spending millions and millions and millions of dollars now, along with some Swiss groups, to go in and try to locate some of this unexploded ordnance. So we're going to stop by the mine center. We're going to stop by the old Citadel Way, where one of the biggest battles of Tet went on. But one of the things we're going to be doing is meeting the high school students there in Dong Ha at the school. Don't ask me the name of the school, because I can't pronounce it.
Dong Ha High School.
It's something like Dong Ha Secondary School.
Yes.
What we're doing is some of the students here that are in our courses here, Lessons of Vietnam, what they have done is they have putting together those manila envelopes that we supplied to them with pictures of themselves and mementos and things from about United States and North Carolina and Raleigh area. Some of it came from Eastern Elements.
Sure.
And we'll be taking those to the high school students there in Vietnam at Dong Ha and sharing those packets with them. And we've done this several times in the past, and it's always it's unbelievable to watch those kids. There's no difference between the Vietnamese kids like this and the American kids. I mean, they open up the packets and they're giggling and laughing and pointing out the American kids and pulling out some of the mementos. And
there's a new twist on this one also, is because this is called the International Pen Pal Unit, and we've involved all the teachers. As Bill mentioned, Alamance County has been a very good host for us for both trips. Our good friend down there, David Ebert, is principal of Eastern Alamance High School, and Dave has sponsored this with his department head, Joy Walker. Now, along with the schools, we have Eastern Alamance High School, Cary High School, Athens Drive High School, and the new twist is Fairfax High School in Fairfax, Virginia, with the Vietnamese students. They're sending letters to the Vietnamese students in Vietnam.
Yeah, the Fairfax Vietnamese Student Association has put together.
And there's 8 of us going to Vietnam on this trip. And it all has spurned from the trip before. The first playground Bill designed to put together has been an oasis in Asia. That's his nickname. The oasis in Asia. It's been a tourist trap for people touring Vietnam. Have to go by, quote, the playground. And when they go to see it, they said, well, call Bill. We want another one. But more than that, we're going to visit them, take some more things. We've had a lot of people donate things to us, especially the veterans, a lot of people around town, a lot of businesses and communities. And before we leave, they'll be emailing kids back here. And this International Pen Pal thing really is breaking down a lot of borders, because we want to try to have the students use the educational tool to learn about Vietnam, about warfare, about none of it works, and talk to each other, and this is the way it starts.
Well, you know, Bob, some of the...
We got a phone call.
Okay. A caller?
Yes.
Speak up so we can hear you, and then what's your question?
I want to know if our group is getting the proper acknowledgement for what we are doing. There's a lot of other groups that are going around with stuff for the needy, and our group is not that big, and we're wondering if we're getting the proper recognition for what we're doing.
Well, you know, Bob, we were talking about it earlier. I don't think we ever get all the recognition that we should be getting. That we wouldn't have to work so hard raising money. There's a lot of good groups out there who are doing a lot of good stuff everywhere, but I think there's room for everybody. But I don't think we're getting the recognition that our members are. Not only did we raise money for the playground, but every member who's going has put $4,000 out of their own pocket in order to make this work, and it's not money that's been donated by someone else. In fact, someone asked me what part of the government was paying, and I'm going, well, I don't know yet because I hadn't seen any of it ever. So to answer your question, caller, I'm not certain. I personally don't think we're getting all the recognition. What do you say, Bob?
Well, I think sometimes the recognition for what you do in a humanitarian way is when you look in the mirror and shave. When you say to yourself, well, okay, not everybody can do this. Not everybody should do it. I want to do it for a lot of reasons. The group going, the people that support us. A lot of groups take credit for things they don't do. And I think our students here in Wake County and around the state have proven that NCVVI / the Bridge Back has a national reputation for doing things the right way and doing things nationwide and answering everyone's question. I don't know how you would get the recognition other than people saying thank you for what you've done. And I've received enough of it personally, but the veterans themselves that have gone back to Vietnam, and of the 8 of us going back this time, we have 2 new members going back to Vietnam, and one not going back, going to Vietnam, has never been there, but have been so instrumental in our task. And our goal 15 years ago, we set in the VFW with 1 light bulb, and our goal was to teach a nation about Vietnam. And I've said this many times before. We know the wall was built to heal a nation, and that it has done.
Well, I don't think any of the ones who are going, who pay the money out of their own pocket, they're not going for recognition for themselves.
No.
Because all you got to do is see the kid's face when they have a chance to play on that playground. As far as the individual, that's the recognition. But at the same time, the organization, North Carolina Vietnam Veterans Incorporated, is, as we mentioned earlier, you and I talked a little earlier, probably foremost leader in educating on Vietnam and so forth in the country. And it would make the fundraising and our outreach to other venues like more schools and so forth a little easier with some recognition, not individually, but the effort of the organization itself.
Well, you know, Bill, if you go on the computer, internet, and you type in teaching Vietnam in America, period, and hit enter, we come up.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a nationwide reputation, and it's deserved because we have spent a lot of our own money, but more than that, we have told the Vietnam story to over 1,000 schools now. We've introduced this course of study and answered the questions and talked to students, comforted families, helped veterans, talked to their sons and daughters, and it's something that has become a way of life. It's like a love story.
Yes.
And it's one of those things where we plan to continue to do it. And I wanted to unveil on tonight's show a little bit. We have a little time left anyway. We have another call. But thank you. Oh, same call? All right. Sir, please continue, sir.
Yeah, I just want to know that the group can't touch the big donors in this country, can't touch the TV stations, can't touch the radio stations. And why is that? Due to the fact that every time you leave the East Coast area, like we were down in Texas, those people never saw the wall. Now, the wall was a great thing, and it was put together by veterans at $5 clips. But if our education system is touching more people in this country than the actual physically seeing the wall.
That's very true. It's very true. And that's that itself may be enough recognition, because I don't ever expect a standing ovation from anybody. But I do expect someone to say thank you, and can you show me? And a lot of teachers, I mentioned this before to a lot of the vets when we first started to go into the schools, teachers are the toughest group to talk to because most teachers are self-serving. They know a lot. And when you're not going to tell teachers how to teach. You're going to help them teach better. With that approach, I think we've done enough of this, and our reputation is so nationwide, and I've been in contact with JPAC and the League of Families about the last 2 months, and it looks like we may have another lane on the bridge. There is a movement about now to have a sponsored document movie about going to a dig, the 5 steps of going to a dig in Vietnam, going to Hawaii, inspecting the lab, with the blessings of a family, finding the remains, having them verified, brought back, and attending the funeral. It's a long process. It's an idea that we're thinking about. NCBVI and the Bridgeback may be the first group honored in the nation to be invited to do this, have it fully documented and fully paid for. And that's something I'd be interested in, although I don't know if we could spend that much time in Vietnam.
Well, you know, you're talking about 30 to 45 days is probably the average trip over there. But for that, I think I would find some way to make the time. I think it's something that it'd be enjoyable. It'd be an adventure, and I think like a lot of other things we're doing, it would be doing some good to bring some family home, some closure, and so forth. And you know, we've been talking about JPAC here, but I still think JPAC itself has got some really good people.
Oh, so do I.
And I'd like to throw out the JPAC that we got a couple of volunteers here that would like to go and work with the dig. I would go for nothing. It just help me pay my way. Don't pay me for being there. Just help me get there, and I'll do whatever grunt work it needs to be done.
Well, Bill, the contact is Mr. Greer in D.C., who for a long time with Bob DeSant, and these people were very involved in this with us. They knew exactly what we were doing. We were doing something no one's done before, and people were asking hard questions. We're trying to answer them. Question led to a question led to a question. Well, this new project will be including 4 veterans, if we're invited, going with this, with our expertise, and with helping them hopefully do a better job. They'll be helping us do a better job. One hand washing the other. And if we could pull this off, this would be a worthwhile quest for NCBVI and the Bridge Back. But getting back for a bit to our question here, our caller said about recognition. I guess in a perfect world, you'd expect someone like maybe 60 Minutes or 2020 to pick up and say, what in the heck is going on in Carolina? Let's get to the bottom of this story. Well, it's so hard to call them and blow your own horn. We don't do that.
Yeah, there's so many people, different organizations out there who are scrambling for recognition. We definitely get more recognition in other places than we do close by.
Of course.
It's kind of like we're taking for granted here.
Sure.
Where, and while the time we were in Texas, it was like we were celebrities, and its kids were the celebrities,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
The program was the celebrities. But I'm not certain what we need to do because we're too busy doing it.
Well, Bill, another thing we're going to do in next school year, the first of the year 2015 school year, is we're meeting with the superintendent late this summer, the new superintendent, and Tiffany Stewart again. Mm-hmm. And we're going to try to recreate something we did 10 years ago. Have a massive workshop. We've already been invited to Caldwell County to do this. Yeah. Talk to all the teachers in the middle schools and the high schools, all the social studies teachers, whatever discipline they use, and give them what we've put online with ncvvi.org. Get your lesson plan in the kids' hands. Mine the veteran community, bring them into the classroom, and use your primary sources.
Well, I know there's a lot of people locally that we all take our hats off to you guys on what you're doing and the sacrifices you're making, because there's still some of us that are still working for a living and that aren't retired and taking money out of their own pockets and their families' pockets, really. So I take my hat off to you guys, and I wish you the best of luck. And long come May 5th, or 7th, I should say.
Yes.
So take care, guys.
Looking forward to it.
Take care, guys.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the call. Thanks for the call, Carl.
While we're talking about recognition and so forth, like I said, we're not, NCVI and the members are not doing it for recognition personally, but it would be the recognition of the Vietnam veteran itself.
Sure.
Is really what we're looking for, to realize that the Vietnam veteran has become a very good representation of a veteran in the United States.
Sure.
Even after all the things that were said about him and so forth, they've loved their country. Very patriotic group. They're dying off fast because of health-related issues and so forth that came out of Vietnam. But by and large, they're a good group of men and women. The thing about it is that new report we saw. The last census said there was basically 2.5 million men and women served in Vietnam. And the last census, I know I can say that word, census, related that there were 13 million some odd thousand people who claimed to be Vietnam veterans.
Well, yeah.
And that's, 4 in every 5 just about that you meet who say they're Vietnam vets are suspect.
And I bet they all served in Chu Hoi, didn't they?
They all went to Chu Hoi and served in Camp Chu Hoi. And but they could have gone in my place.
That's right.
But I'm not. So many of them out there are doing things and stating things that they supposedly did when they were in Vietnam. That kind of still hurts the Vietnam veterans. What the public's view of the Vietnam veteran will say, and sometimes that recognition gets in the way of the good stuff that NCVI does and other veterans organizations do. There's a lot of outreach between other veterans organizations out there to help today's veteran, the Vietnam veterans, and so forth. So there's a lot to be done as far as the veterans issues, veterans health issues here in the United States, as well as reaching out to the kids as we do in Vietnam and other countries. But by having the Vietnamese American students and the American students corresponding with the Vietnamese who live under a communist regime right now, back and forth and sharing ideas and lifestyles and so forth, hopefully all three groups will share and get a lot out of it, and That alone is about as much recognition as you could ever ask.
Well, Bill, what you're starting to see around the nation is there's more and more Vietnam veterans and their families not owning up to being in Vietnam, being more proud of it than ever.
Yeah.
You're seeing the magic hat. You're seeing the hats. You're seeing people come up, thank you for serving. There's so much more people being aware of the Vietnam, going back and doing some research. And this show itself has prompted so many questions. When you had the idea to come on here and explain lessons of Vietnam 17 weeks ago, it has paid tremendous dividends because the teachers in Wake County schools, people on the street, people are asking much, much better questions. How can I get into the classroom? Can I tell my story? The self-importance has risen. And this is one of our goals way back when we sat down and planned this course out. We said the whole key to the course is not the students, it's not the teachers, although you do need good teachers. It's the veterans willing to come into the classroom and tell their story and let it blend into history and let the kids make their own mind up and allow the students to ask hard questions, difficult questions, and don't belittle the students. Let them ask her questions. Let them get in the essay contest. Let them be involved. Some of our links still call us to this day.
Yeah. Well, yesterday I was a guest at Athens High School.
Sure.
Classroom full of students. Very impressed with the students. They paid close attention and asked a lot of good questions. Some questions it was hard to answer because it's hard to come out with a black or white answer. There's a lot of gray in some of the answers, especially about Vietnam. But I thoroughly enjoyed visiting with the kids, and I think they had a good time, and hopefully both learned a lot yesterday. And that to me is what keeps us going is
sure.
is the kids and so forth. And
but did you do any of the kids at Athens Drive where you were, I believe, in Jimmy Baum's class? Mm-hmm. Do they like rice?
Well, that's the first question I always ask them if they like rice, and then I explain to them how rice is fertilized, and ask them to go home and see if their rice is bleached or is it really supposed to be yellow or brown. And sometime I'll go into the whole story over the air, but I just realized that how the Vietnamese fertilize their rice paddies, and think about it, and we'll keep right on moving on. And,
yes, we will.
I'm excited about doing the show from Vietnam.
That's my next. I was going to bring that up next. That's going to be really cool.
Yes,
that's going to be cool. And we're going to Skype from Nam. Now we'll also have the 8 people going with us. This is the old teacher coming out in me. We're going to have the 8 participants in the Bridgeback trip keep a journal. I'm going to ask them to keep a journal and give their thoughts on the plane and going over, because we have a long plane ride.
Well, but you also gave them reading materials to study and so forth. It's
yes.
like having homework.
They're having homework on the plane and a test in the hotel. There'll be a test. They'll be graded.
Yes.
But the thing is, I want the people going. I love them to give me like this. And for a lot of the guys that have done all the things we've done over the years with the Vietnamese people in America in here, it's because we want to. We made a promise to those people years ago, and we're going to keep that promise. And with 8 of us going, we have a lot on our agenda, a lot of people to thank, and we're just about ready to lock that suitcase.
Yes.
Just about ready.
Well, the folks out at Woodplay out on Lumley Road,
yes.
There's nobody could have been any nicer and worked with us harder than those folks out there. I know that Mike is about gone totally gray and lost all his hair trying to deal with shipping.
Yes.
Shipping a case that's 14 feet long, 7 feet tall, 4.5 feet wide, ownership to Vietnam, getting it through customs is a challenge into itself. And hopefully it is on almost getting ready to be landing in Da Nang within the next week or so, maybe 2 weeks at the most, and be there so we know it's there. But I know that Mike has had several challenges, and then we discovered that some chains got left out for the swings. And we've gone through a couple scenarios trying to get the chains over there.
We'll take care of the chains.
And so we found out it's going to be a whole lot cheaper. To ship it over there is going to be $460, something like that, to ship it.
Sure.
But we can actually have an extra suitcase for $35. So we just got to get it through customs when we get there. But we'll work it out. We're taking toys and some other stuff with us. And
well, there's like, as Bill said, hats off to Woodplay of the Carolinas.
Yeah.
Hats off to Creative Screening.
Yes.
Made all our shirts. Hats off to Creative Images.
Yes.
That made all the plaques.
All the plaques.
There's so many people we can take our hat off to. That this is a really trip that everybody's invested in. Everybody will come back, and we'll meet with all the people we get back and give them the scenario. Channel 5's involved. Channel 13 will be involved. So there'll be a lot of publicity here. We've thought about this a long time, and it looks like we're right on point.
Yes.
Looks like we're right on point.
Well, another big help is the South Vietnamese people who are now Vietnamese Americans.
Yes.
The Vietnamese community here has stepped forward and really appreciates us helping the kids in their country.
Sure they do.
They still look at it as their country, most of them, even though they love being in America. They love being Americans. We've been to their functions where the national anthem for the United States is America is played first, the Pledge of Allegiance, and then they play the national anthem for former South Vietnam. So they love being Americans, but they still have that warm spot for their and a lot of them still have families there, and they have been over backwards to help us there. And
well, there is no question that we become brothers in arms. No question at all. Brothers in peace, as you will now.
Yeah.
But we've met a lot of people in this country, Americans, Vietnamese, that have come together on this issue, helping South Vietnam, which we still call, help the Vietnamese with freedom. Mm-hmm. The key word is freedom. Their own choices, going to their schools, doing all kind of things that we do here and enjoy. And the vehicle for all this, unbelievably, is a playground.
yes.
All the rhetoric, all the talk, all the philosophy, it all comes down to a swing on chains.
For some kids
It comes down to that.
who know nothing about a war with America or whatever. It all comes down, and as when NCVI and the Bridgeback Foundation, part of NCVI, does get a lot of recognition that we don't know about.
Yes.
Today I had one of the young men that we met when we were there before who helped us with the playground. I sent him a message on Facebook, we'll be there, and he was excited about it. And there were several comments from people who I did not know about the Bridgeback and the work they had done. So
They know who we are.
there's a lot of people out there that we have met. We've made sure that on the airplane on the way over there, everybody's sitting on an aisle seat by themselves so we can share the
Maybe
story. And
Oh yeah, because we're old.
Yes.
Needs some room. Well,
Yes.
another thing that we've done is mentioned before. Our good friend in Vietnam is named Song Tran, and he is a master guide in Vietnam. He's been to this country several times, but he lives in Vietnam, lives in Da Nang, and he is in charge of receiving the playground, securing the playground, shipping the playground to Dong Ha, and supervising everything. We feel very comfortable with him because he is a heck of a guy, and he's going to take care of business for us.
well, Bob, and people don't realize just how special he is. He is a South Vietnamese soldier. That alone puts a big target on his back.
He does.
But because of his hard work and the guy that he is and his hard work, because he loves his country, communist or whatever, he loves his country, and he tells you he loves his country.
He does.
But he owns his own home, has a car. His kids have gone off to university and gone back to start businesses in Vietnam. And that's pretty unheard of for a former South Vietnamese soldier to be able to be that successful in a country that does not recognize a South Vietnamese soldier ever having existed.
And when we saw him in Washington, D.C., he brought his wife. He came up to Global Spectrum, who we've mentioned many times before, who is our parent travel agency on our trip, Global Spectrum. Song was their guest in Washington, D.C., and Joe Harsh, myself, and Bill drove up to see Song. He had one request. He always says the same thing to me. Bob, I will see you again. And he knows he will. But he said, I have one request when you come to Vietnam in May. I would like a shirt, a 3-button shirt, 3-button, that says the bridge back on it, in white. And I said, Song, you'll have 2 of them.
Yes.
And they're already packed. So Song Tran, you'll be well dressed.
So, you know, we've talked about some of our exciting shows. We think they're exciting. We hope that you think they're exciting coming up. Bill Schuette's wife, the next show. And anytime, call in at 919-518-9773. Give us your opinion of what the show's like. Give us an opinion what you think we should reach out for guests. We spent a lot of time on the POW issue and still will, because it is still a hot issue. It is as relevant today as it was 10 years ago in its own way, especially with the problems that JPAC has been having. And, you know, we've talked a lot of stories tonight about JPAC, but there's still some really good people affiliated with JPAC who want nothing more to bring closure to those families, not just Vietnam, but Korea and World War II and all the wars in between. They're digging all over every place.
Well, Bill, you know, if you ask a nation's people, if I want you to send your sons, your husbands, and your fathers to go around the world and fight for freedom and defend people that need it, you have to keep your word to them. If you ask a family to send your son, to send someone to a foreign land to fight for freedom, and you lose them or lose track of them, you owe it to the family to make sure you cross every T and dot every I. And so we've tried to do this in the classroom. We've tried to set up what's called a mock session and try to have the people become the people they're talking to. For instance, Bill mentioned Janie Schuette's coming in 2 weeks. Well, we tried to have the students be Janie Schuette and let Bill walk in after 7.5 years in captivity. And it got so quiet in the room that they actually became Janie Schuette. And they didn't know what to ask at first. It was the same with everyone coming back from Vietnam. There was a quiet time when the questions had to be asked, and you had to lie. Often you tell a lie to protect someone, but you must ask the hard questions. So
it was sometimes it wasn't a lie. It's just nobody knew the truth or what the answer was. Not necessarily the truth, but didn't know what the answers were. They had the questions and didn't know how to ask the questions or whatever, and didn't really know how to ask or what it was if they did hear.
But when you see a family like we did with Donald Shue, and you bring home the remains, and you kept your word to that family, and you gave that family closure, and you allowed them to bury their son with honors. I mean, you and I were both there, Bill Dixon.
Yes.
Down in Concord.
And it was a packed house. I mean, I've seen funerals today of people who just died who did not have the turnout that Donald Shue had and some of the others we've been to. It was amazing. People came out to show their respects to the family and to Donald Shue.
People driving through town, people sitting in trees, on the curbs, kids waving, welcome home, a hero.
Yeah.
A proper burial, give the family the flag. I know it sounds like Hollywood. Doesn't sound like Hollywood, Bill. It was Hollywood. It was wonderful.
I don't think Hollywood could do it that well. By the way, today, April 9th, 2014, is National Former Prisoner of War Day, a recognition day. So if you know a former POW, call them up and recognize them and tell them you appreciate their service and let them know. I mean, those people went through a great deal for their country and still going through. Because I can tell you between the physical and the mental stuff they went through, they're going through it still every day. We talk about Vietnam. When was your last time you were in Vietnam? I was there just last night. Well, you know, to them it was just there this afternoon, just there this morning. can't really.
No. It's one of those few times, Bill, when you're talking to someone and trading stories that you can't say, I know what you mean, but you can't.
Right.
You don't know what you do.
And I'm very grateful that I don't know.
So am I.
Yes. Well, that's we're getting close to the end of our show. We've got some great shows coming up. We've got a few more minutes. If anybody wants to call in, well, like I said, we're looking forward to doing our show from Vietnam. It's going to be an experience for us, as well as Amnon getting it done. Looking forward to it. And then we got Miss Shooty coming in. I'm really looking excited about that.
JD's quite a lady, but one question, Mr. Dixon. As the show winds down tonight, when we Skype from Vietnam, can we forget the role? Can we give Joe the mic?
Well, I'm not certain whether we can give Mr. Harsh the mic or not for a long period of time because, well, you know, once you give him the mic, it's hard to get it back.
That's true.
And it's going to be hooked up to the computer. So, you know, he's a good guy, but
be careful.
The worst thing about it is giving the mic, he steals all of everybody else's stories.
That's true. That's true.
I mean, he stole my story about the Kool-Aid and your story about the sausage that and so forth. But
the main thing over the past shows is Bill has. And I want to also reiterate thanking you for being an audience for the last several weeks as we explore the POW issue, because it is a major story, and we're just scratching the surface. We're trying to get everyone we can, every primary source, to give you, the audience, every possible fact. So when you see this flag flying right here, and you see this bumper sticker around Wake County, and you're riding with somebody, you'll say to them, I know what they're talking about. You know why? Because I was on NissanCommunications.com. There you go.
You know, also I want to bring out that if you live anywhere in North Carolina, come join us on the first Saturday of the month. This coming, the first Saturday in May, we've got a group coming from New Bern to participate in the reading the names. We've been doing this since 1987.
Yes.
We meet the first Saturday of the month at 12 o'clock noon. If you're anywhere in North Carolina, come join us at 12 o'clock. If you have an organization, give us a call. Call in the show, 919-518-9773. Give us a call and say that you or your organization would like to be part of the calling out of the names. We started out, there was 65 still unaccounted for. We have 41 names right now that we're trying to get closure to. And hopefully 2 of them we're getting ready to have closure to pretty soon.
Yes.
That would be great. There will be 2 more families that can put this behind them. But come join us and be part of the reading the names. We never do it the same way twice. We're very flexible how we do it, and come join us. We'll try to teach you how to say some of the southern names. We always give people a hard time about Lucama, because it's Lucama, but that's okay. We'll let you do it anyway. But thank you very much for tuning in to the show.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Health In with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, The Tanya Love Show, Reawaken Your Brilliance with Julie Seibert, and if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by Atomus.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters for professionals. ThatVidBlasterGuy.com, CarolinaApparel.com, and DeltaForce.net.